I've gone live a moment early just to give people a chance to join so that they don't miss anything. So if you're watching this on the replay, you've got something great coming up. Give us a hashtag replay in the comments. You know, I like my hashtag replay. And let us know you're watching and ask questions, because we will be back with a part 2. Okay, so it is officially 12:15. We have a few people live and online already. Well done, you've made it here. Now, there is a bit of a weird thing. If you want to ask questions and you want us to be able to see who you are, if you just accept the Restream app, and we can get you live. We can get your names, but we will answer as many questions as we can, and I have loads of questions to ask Emma. So welcome. This is a very highly anticipated event from not just myself. I've been so excited ever since I first spoke to Emma. I've been excited about this, but I've had lots of people getting in touch with me, stopping me at the school gate, wherever, to say, oh, I can't believe you're doing this. This looks really brilliant. And it is going to be because Emma has blown me away with her knowledge and experience. And I'll do a proper intro of Emma in a moment. But obviously this is the World Health Organization's Menopause Month is October. So one of the reasons we chose to do this now. But also, I work with women, so this is something that I really want to know more about. But for anybody that read my blog this week, Menopause and Me, you will know that I am in the grips of perimenopause and dealing with the ups, downs, the abject rage, the depths of depression. You know, I've had thoughts that I didn't even think I was capable of, and it has really had an impact on me. And I am one of those people that has to have answers. Like, I want to go out, find out what's going on, and I always want a fix. I don't know if there necessarily is a full fix, but we'll find out from Emma. But I've been trying all kinds of things to really help myself. From the medical, I went and sought help from my doctor, but also you may have seen me posting about sea swimming. That's one of the things that I've been doing. My positive intelligence and mindfulness, taking supplements, trying to exercise more, you know, all the things that we know may help and may make a difference. I've been giving everything a go. And that's, hi Christina and Serena, thank you. That's why I really wanted to get Emma along for my own personal benefit, but no, really for all of you, because I know this is such a big topic, and it's about time that we all were talking about it, and it's great to see that that's finally happened. I always think of my mum and my grandma and all of those women before us that must have gone through an awful lot with not much of it spoken about. And having this freedom now to talk about it makes a big difference. And when it comes to menopause and the workplace, I think that's where we really need to open things up. And companies are starting to make policy, starting to do things, but I think there's a big fear around talking about menopause, a fear of being seen as weak, a fear of being seen as not as capable as you were. And so we're going to be talking about all of that and more today with the fantastic Emma Persand. And she is, well, I'll give you some of the official stuff. The founder and director of Lima Health of Working with the Menopause. She's a qualified nurse and workplace health and wellbeing professional. She's done lots of training and qualifications in menopause care and CBT. She's the Vice Chair of the Society of Occupational Medicine's Diversity and Inclusion Task Force, sits on the European Menopause and Andropause Society's Task Force, contributing to the 2022 Global Statement on what healthcare professionals need to know about menopause. Member of the GMCA's Women and Girls Equity Panel, and I always cringe when people read out my bio. I don't know how you feel. Currently working with the British Standards Institute on the new menstruation health and menopause workplace guide, and you've just received some fantastic news, which I'll let you tell everybody about. So welcome, Emma. I think all that tells us you're an absolute expert in your field, and if I didn't believe all of that enough, my first conversation with Emma just blew me away. There wasn't anything she couldn't answer, and she's a whole lot of fun as well. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Oh, that's a bit of a challenge there, that I can answer anything that you asked me.
Well, you answered anything that I could ask you, but who knows? We will see what happens, and I'm sure you can always come back to us with. You can point us in the right direction of the information anyway. So tell us quickly about the award you've just received knowledge of.
Yeah, yesterday I was awarded the title of Queen's Nurse, which is given. It's given to nurses who demonstrate a commitment to improving standards of care in the community, in the workplace. And so it's a platform for me to continue improving standards, and a recognition, really. And I can work with the Queen's Nurse Institute then, influencing with what my work does. So yes, it's a very, very lovely award to get.
Yeah, very prestigious as well. And I think that's the thing, that you're not just very knowledgeable on what you do, you are impacting policy mindset across the whole of the UK, which is phenomenal, and Europe, and no doubt having a global impact too. And that's what's exciting, is that I love when you are working with women that want to get that knowledge out there, because it's brilliant to do stuff for yourself, but anyone that knows me knows I love impact, and how can you have as much impact as possible, and you're absolutely doing that, Emma. So I've mentioned a little bit about my menopause story. I'll post the link to my blog, but I noticed for me that it was actually, I didn't know I'd had symptoms for quite a few years. It was only when the extreme symptoms of rage and mood swings doesn't even cut what I had experienced. Like going to the depths of despair. I don't think a mood swing really gives you the full feeling of that. But it was such a change for me that I recognized, I'd had the brain fog and memory loss and things like that. And I'd almost been joking about that and the low energy. But it was when things got serious that I recognized what was actually happening. And I know you have your own menopause story too, and your story of how you got into what you're doing. So I'd love you to share that with us.
So we used to work in occupational health for NHS and private companies, and I became the expert in stress, in work-related stress, through my own interest really, and qualifications. And it was about 8 years ago, I wrote the preventing work-related stress policy for a local NHS trust, and then designed the management training to roll that out to support workers. And you can imagine the NHS and work-related stress. And so any complicated work-related stress cases were referred to me, really. And it was one case that changed my career. She was a 41-year-old woman who had 2 young children and a working husband and elder care of a parent. And she was a senior executive, so she was public facing, delivered a lot of presentations, and she was juggling a lot for what was going on in the changes in the trust, and she developed severe symptoms of work-related stress and ended up having a period of time off from work, hence then referral into occupational health to support her. There's a definite pathway of managing work-related stress through the NICE guidelines and through the workplace policies. And if they're all dealt with correctly, it's a time-limited thing and you can recover from it, and hopefully ongoing, it never happens again. So this woman was under a GP doing the right things, under me doing the right things, really supportive manager, and she wasn't getting any better. And it was the proactive GP that said, I think you might be perimenopausal. Now, I'd never heard that term ever, and I thought I knew what menopause was. And I was thinking, quite wrongly, you're 41. She thought the same, but the GP said, trust them. And then they started on the treatment pathway for perimenopausal symptoms rather than acute stress reaction of work-related stress. And her symptoms revolutionized overnight.
Wow.
And a light bulb went on in my head thinking, oh gosh, how many women have we performance managed, have left the workplace, have not gone for promotion, or have stepped down from a grade so they can manage, and it's been depression, anxiety, work-related stress. So I started to research, and there was nothing. There was nothing in the workplace, academia, in the healthcare professionals, nothing. So I went and trained with the British Menopause Society and got the specialist skills certificate. And then I also trained in cognitive behavioural therapy for menopause symptoms. I'm not a therapist, because as you'll find out as we go through all this, that menopause is not a middle-aged disease, that it happens at any time after puberty, and that women, especially after breast cancer treatment, will, if they're estrogen dependent positive tumour, will have severe menopause symptoms, and there's nothing for them. Yeah. So to maintain women in the workplace, I did all that, and then went back and said, this is what I've done. You know, no one was interested. Nobody wanted to know. There was no budget, no funding, no nothing. And so it's benefited me, because I ended up having to just take a risk and set up on my own and say, this is what we should do. And so that's what my work is.
Wow. Like, I don't know about anybody listening, and I've heard this story twice now. I've got absolute chills throughout my body listening to that, because I have had so many women just like the woman that you dealt with. Now, thankfully, we know now that that's the likely cause of what's going on, where their lives just seem to be imploding because there's so much happening. And I think it's the tipping of the balance of the hormones, perimenopause changing, that just crumbles their usual strategies for coping, and everything becomes too much. And just hearing you describe that with the woman that you were supporting, first of all, that she had all that support in the first place, and thank goodness for the insight of that GP, which is not most women's experience, as you know, but that's led you here, and now we are getting to benefit from that. And you've been at the forefront of this. Like, there's a wave now of movement towards supporting women through perimenopause, menopause, that's happening, and you're obviously at the back of it, kind of pushing it forward, making it happen. So I think we all owe you a big debt of gratitude for that. And I'm really interested to hear you say you've not heard of the word perimenopause. Like, where has this come from? Why have we never heard of this until very recent times?
So that's the problem. So the education talk that I do to all women, well, everybody, it's not just women, this is not a woman's problem, is called the third talk. the session that I do, because when we're in school, our sexual health education is the school nurse and some, birds and bees talk. And then if you're lucky, you might get another one, a contraceptive talk of how not to get pregnant. And that's it. That's it. You leave school. And so what we now know is, like puberty is a period of years. You don't go to bed one night a little girl, wake up the next morning a woman. We know that it's a period of years, and it's when your hormones start to fluctuate to create an adult body. Exactly the same happens the other end. Menopause is a transition. Okay, so it's once you have your periods, you're actually pre-menopause. It's before they stop. That's the age. That's the term. And then roughly round about the age of 38, your eggs start to decline a little bit more rapidly. And that's important because it's your egg production that maintains your estrogen levels. So roughly around about the time of 38, the eggs start to decline, and that's perimenopausal. So that is just before your eggs stop. Now that can be 10 years. So that when your estrogen starts to fluctuate, because you've got estrogen receptors all over your body, it's not just about your periods. So you have them in your neurotransmitters, you have them in your skin for your collagen, you have them in your arteries for flexibility, for the blood to go around, you have them in your genital urinary areas to maintain your pelvic floors and to maintain your vagina. You have estrogen is needed for bone turnover, to maintain bone density. So because you've got estrogen receptors all over your body, everyone is different. Think about puberty. Everybody has a different experience. If you've had a child, think about pregnancy. Some women sail through it. Some women have 9 months of hell. Same as perimenopausal transition. Now, it's a normal, natural process that we go through. And yes, we're talking about the bad, negative aspects. We have to highlight the bad aspects to raise the profile. But actually, we're talking about a phase of our life as well. So it's your eggs reducing, but also the phase of our life. And so the problem begins is when we tally the two as a negative experience, that, oh my God, my eggs are stopping. That means I'm getting old. Well, actually, you've still got probably a third of your life to go. So you're not old. And kids, when who were born in 2011, are likely to live till they're 100. So people who menstruate will spend 50% of their life with no eggs, if you like. So it can't be a marker of old age. It cannot be. And so that feeds into our beliefs and attitudes of what's happening. I know if you have regular periods from 38, but your cognition starts to go, you're feeling of overwhelmness, social anxiety. I hear that a lot, where people would drive at night and then can't face getting into a car at night, or presenting, or going into a room of people that they love suddenly becomes a big deal. And your periods are normal. You're not going to tally the two, that actually it might be a fluctuation of estrogen and it's normal. Right? So it becomes a big deal. So that the problem is we don't understand the perimenopausal time. We just know menopause is when your eggs stop. That's it. Menopause, eggs stop. But actually it's the whole biopsychosocial cultural of us working, how we feel about ourselves, our biology, and the cultural attitude to women adds all into how we are why we're here today. That's it.
And also then in the workplace, quite often, if you've been working on your career and progressing, you're also at a time where you've more responsibility. You may be managing more people. You may have older children at home, or in my case, it's interesting hearing you describe perimenopause. It helps me see how I slipped from my youngest is 7, from having her straight into perimenopause. Those things were happening at the same time. And so the parental symptoms of being a new mom, tiredness, brain fog, all the rest of it, just carried on. And, I'd blamed it on that. And it's taken me a while to realize that actually it's probably the other.
Fluctuation. Yes. And you mentioned it in the intro as well. So there has never been a time like this for a woman. So I know our mothers and our grandparents, and we only find out about menopause by the bad symptoms your mum or your grandmother had, because if she didn't have any physical, most women will be fine. So we need to put that in, right?
Yeah.
Most women are fine. It's nothing to dread. It's not, you don't dread. However, there's 25% of all women that go through it, like puberty, that have a really bad time. And so then we need to support them. That's it.
Yeah.
We just need to support those 25%.
Yeah.
But our mothers and grandmothers wouldn't be in the position that we are in today. So this has never happened in the history of womankind, where we are going through perimenopausal and menopause, but actually now we are working, right? We are working people, and we can't retire because of financial inequalities, and you've double income if you're in a couple, or you might be a single parent. 90% of single parents are women, so you can't retire. They keep moving the goalposts of when we were going to retire anyway. The economic situation, but also our children can't leave home because of the economic situation. We've got children, if they do leave home, come back. And I think the average age now is 30 of when they move out. Well, I've got 3 boys, 22, 20 and 18. And I might have them all the way through. But our parents are living longer. That never happened before. But our parents are living longer with chronic diseases. And so we become, we become parents to our parents. So it's that culmination of everything, plus the lack of information about our own health. That's why it's becoming so prevalent, that if you do not address all that and support women in the workplace, they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And we can't afford that. Yeah,
absolutely. It's the lack of information, but also the lack of time and lack of focus on ourselves. So something I see time and time again with women is we're at the bottom of the list, if we even appear on the list at all. And so things can get to, I think, crisis point for a lot of women before they actually take action. And I've had a few people recently come to speak to me about working with me, and that's where they're at. Everything has just become so much that they can't deal with it, and the big stressor is I'm not able to perform at work, and I'm worried I'm going to lose my job, and that's a really terrible place to be. And so we will be digging into what you can do about that and how employers should be supporting you. Just so people know, we are going to do a follow-up session to this. So I would love to get your questions, and we will be answering more of these questions next time as well. But we've heard what's happening to your body. What are some of the lesser known symptoms, and how do you know when you should go and seek help?
So I've just described, so you've got estrogen receptors all over your body. So you can start to feel the impact of fluctuating hormones. However, we talked about work-related stress. Exactly the same symptoms. Low thyroid, exactly the same symptoms. So my advice is always, so the NICE guidelines, this is the NICE guidelines, and you should be aware of them. So if you are beginning to have symptoms that impact your life, so whether it's cognition, whether it's insomnia, whether it's heavy periods, or whatever, or genital urinary symptoms, dry vagina, or stress incontinence, everything we don't talk about. There is self-management symptoms that you start with, right? So if it's insomnia, it's reducing your stress in your life. It's having a bedtime sleep hygiene, and learning about your sleep cycle. If it's cognition, we know that exercise, all the rest of it. So the self-management strategies that you can do, that when I say that, all women roll their eyes at me and go, when do I have the time for that, right? So I appreciate that people might be throwing things at the screen. Yeah. I understand. However, we need to do them, because once you have addressed your diet, reducing your alcohol. Unfortunately, yes, you can't get away with it in your perimenopausal time. Reducing your alcohol, your food, your sleep, exercise, stress. Once you've done all that and you're still suffering some symptoms, or you're not yourself, mood swings, anger, bloating, the itchiness of like you've got like a spider or something that randomly in you, at night, and it's impacting your quality of life. You then go for the next step, which is intervention, and that's your GP or a menopause specialist if you know it's perimenopause. So your GP, you go in, and what happens is you've got 10-15 minutes and you're going and you can't describe the entirety of it. So I always say, go in with your top 5. Sit down and think about what's impacting you the most and what you're worried about, really. Go in with your top 5. So traditionally, GPs and nurses and healthcare professionals never got any training on menopause. So it'd never been at your forefront. Now it's getting better, and we know that some GPs are fantastic. So if you're under 40, definitely have a blood test. That is nice guidelines, because when your ovaries start to fluctuate and so the estrogen levels start to fluctuate, your brain sends a lovely messenger down to your ovaries called a follicle stimulating hormone, stimulates your follicles to produce an egg. So they measure that. They measure your follicle stimulating hormone. So under 40, if you've got high FSH, and there's others, there's luteinizing hormone, AMH. If you've got high, that suggests that your ovaries are fluctuating, and it shouldn't be under the age of 40. Becomes a medical condition then. It's not a natural event. A natural event is between 48 and 51 of menopause, and it's different. So white women, it's 51, Black and Asian women, it's 48, but smoking, genetics come into that. So roughly 48 to 51. So if your FSH is high under 40, it's a medical condition and you need support. You go to GP. 40 to 45 and 45 onwards, nice guidelines say it's pretty pointless doing blood tests because you're fluctuating so much. You take 2 blood tests 6 weeks apart. You could take it and your estrogen is fluctuated to a normal, and then it does this. And then 6 weeks later, it's normal. So those results come back and they say, no, your FSH is low, so you're not perimenopause, but actually you are. So what they suggest is you have blood tests over the age of 40 to rule out everything else. It's not hormone tests. So you have your diabetes, your vitamins, your thyroid. You have your full range of blood tests. And if they come back as normal, it is likely to be due to your hormones then. And then that's when you know. And then there's a treatment pathway. First port of call is HRT because it's good for symptoms. However, not everybody can take it. Not everybody wants to take it. People are worried about it. And there are other things. And then after that, it's your allies in your workplace. So it's the whole range of support to get you to be the awesome person that you are.
Yeah. And your allies at home. Friends, partners, family, whoever. And it is interesting. So I did the self-care things, as you mentioned. And I was over 40, so they did blood tests just to rule other things out and to check I was okay for HRT. But a couple of things I did. One was I wrote down all my symptoms, and I didn't think to rank them. But my doctor, the doctor I asked to see happens to be a woman of a similar age, and she was quite understanding, I have to say. But there was all kinds of things like joint pain. Like I thought I needed a hip replacement. Turns out it was menopause.
Joint pain's the biggie. And so in Japan, so in Britain, that the symptoms are hot flushes and cognition, brain fog. They're the ones that British women report the most impacting. In Japan, they don't have hot flushes. They don't at all. So they don't report them at all because their highest rated symptom is shoulder pain.
Wow.
So in Britain, if you've got shoulder pain, like you've just said, you'd go down the orthopedic route and the physio route. In Japan, so nobody knows why. We just know that everybody has a different experience, and it's not just your biology, it's your culture that you're brought up in as well, and the society, like I've just said. So in Japan, they have a high phytoestrogenic diet, which is soya, but they have it from birth. So estrogenic soya has an estrogen property in your body, but they have it from birth. So even now, if you started to take soya, you wouldn't feel the benefits. Also in Japan, they have an attitude to aging where the women are wiser and relevant in community. So there's a difference. So women of British Indian origin here report hot flushes. Women in India don't have hot flushes. So it's not just the culture that you've brought up in within your family, it's the society around you. So it's so complex, but you can reduce it down to being quite simple when we start looking at it. It's a normal, natural phase, and it can be sorted.
And I think, there's so many directions I want to go with this conversation, but there's some really interesting things, and something that you have talked about, and I want to touch on even more, is there's the hardships and the negative bits, and you are talking about the positive element of it being a phase, and it is interesting, that cultural thing. So I'd mentioned this to you before, like in all of the sort of ancient cultures, there's a word for a woman at this phase of life that implies great wisdom and respect and authority. And it's funny that we culturally don't have that anymore, yet our ancestors did. But some of the things that come along with that, and positive things I've noticed about this phase in my life, and I think it's important that we talk about this so that we're not all, this is the worst thing that ever happened, which I can feel like some days.
I know, so I don't, that's why I don't say it, because I think women want to stab me when I'm going, do you know what, this is the best time of our lives.
But there's some really good stuff, so I'll share my good stuff. It might trigger some thoughts in other people. So it's a time when I've really sought out strong connections. So I went through a phase of life, like my late 20s, 30s, where yes, I had good friends and whatever, but I was a little bit lonely with how things were, and you don't have as much time for deep friendships. There's lots of socializing and whatever. Whereas I have this unbelievable urge now to build really strong connection with other women. And I'm noticing my friendship circle is really changing because of that. And it's so nourishing and phenomenal. I'm also looking, and I was chatting to a really good friend about this desire to try new things, and to look for things that are exciting but important to us individually, because I think we spend so much time focusing on everybody else, and so it becomes a little bit of a time for me. And also giving so many less shits about what anybody thinks or whatever, like all about doing me. And if you don't like it, you can jog on. And I believe those things are all connected to this time in life, that there's something there.
And the government, the country has recognised that midlife women is an untapped massive resource, really, and because there's not enough people coming into the workplace, there's not enough skills, there's a skills shortage. There's a menopause task force for the government, and it's focused on retention and supporting the experience that we all have. So us now, look at us, I'm a mother and a partner and a daughter, and I juggle all that as well as I work, and they're recognizing that experience is huge and beneficial to the community.
Oh, absolutely. And you've made me connect something else there as well. We become much more purpose driven right now, I think, as well, and we want to have a positive impact. So a lot of what I do is helping women level up in their careers and get promoted. And I get this almost pushback from women going, oh, it's not about the money, it's about purpose and leaving a positive impact. And I'm like, yeah, like I absolutely want to help you do that. And I think this is part of it. But also get paid properly while you do it. And
that's it.
There's this thing in women's psyche that you don't get to have both, and that's nonsense. Why shouldn't we be paid properly? Because we have a bigger and more positive impact. So it's interesting to hear that the government are actually trying to tap into this, because it is a wealth of unbelievable riches.
It is. So like I say, we're talking about the negative aspects, and hopefully you're beginning to understand that if you've got estrogen receptors all over your body, that actually you probably need to do something about it. I'm not saying take HRT. It's not for everybody. There are pros and cons. It is great, but not for everybody. And it's relatively safe. And so go and do your risk and benefits conversation with your GP, because anything you take, whether it's natural, everybody thinks, if you're putting something into your body, there's a risk and a benefit to everything. And like when we have a glass of wine or a beer, we weigh up the risks and the benefits. We know actually it's not really doing our health any good, but the benefits are magnificent. So that's how we do it. So think about HRT or a natural remedy or anything like that. There's a risk and a benefit to everything that you take. So once you have done all that, and then I'm telling you to go and do the well-being things like your support network. I've also taken up cold water swimming. Never thought I'd do it, and I love it. So if I'm 51 and I'm jumping into a sea when it's, freezing cold, and I really enjoy it. I've bought some rollerblades. I'm going to break my hip on them, I know. So I'm just doing things that are ridiculously stupid, but actually at 51, I'm really enjoying this time to just
make
do
me feel alive.
And also the fact that 2 women are doing this and women are logging on, we're talking about health. It's only going to get better. And so this is a real positive stage, as well as it being really difficult to manage. So once you can manage it and you get support in the workplace to do all this, you can't do it on your own. It is a chance for you and to do the great things. Whether you want to stay at that level in your career, that's fine. If you want to move up, go for it. If you want to step back, that's fine also.
And I think the thing that I want to really encourage women is that, when you get the help and support, you don't have to step back or decide it's not for you. It's about opening up those options and choices so that you're not making decisions that are the wrong decisions for the wrong reasons. It feels right, but we want to get you the support. We want to get you feeling great, because you have the potential to have such a positive impact on others around you. And if you're holding yourself back from your potential, you're not going to get to do that as much. So we've only got a few minutes left. There's a couple more things I want to ask, and Emma Johnson has put a question on around repeated rounds of IVF bringing on perimenopause.
So at age 43, you will be perimenopause anyway. So it's not about bringing it on or delaying it or whatever. So age 43, you will be perimenopausal, but doesn't mean that you won't get pregnant, because, like I said, it's a fluctuation. So, and so if you've had repeated rounds of IVF and it's not worked, it's not going to bring on perimenopause because you're in it. But what I'm saying is, it might not be why the IVF didn't work, because you still can, so you still can. So it doesn't bring it on. No, we're in it. You're in it really from the age of about 38. And like puberty, some women don't feel anything. They don't know. Their body is just naturally, reducing an estrogen. So they don't tally. Those two don't tally.
Okay. So I'd love for you've given us lots of tips as we've gone through about how to approach it and how to go to your doctor. Are there any things that you feel we all should know that could help us right now that maybe we're unaware of?
Yeah, and this applies to everybody, not just women, but it actually works for women. So part of the cognitive behavioral therapy, what you learn straight away at the beginning, because CBT is not saying that your symptoms are in your head at all, because they're not the real. So the stress response that we have in our body, which is obviously the dumping of adrenaline and the cortisol, right? So that was fantastic when we were going to be eaten alive, and we needed to save ourselves. So what happens is there's a threat, you focus in, push out the positive, adrenaline is dumped in, increases your heart rate, blood goes to your muscles, glucose goes into your system for energy, and blood is diverted from your non-essential organs. Happens in a nanosecond. So if a bus was coming around the corner, that response happens and you jump out of the way. But what happens afterwards is you rest and digest. And your brain at 4 o'clock in the morning goes, hello, we need to process this threat. You nearly died today, ruminating. But it will also do that in the workplace if it happened on the way. Unfortunately, the stress that we have and the threats are not life-threatening at the moment. So it's a threat to our health, the boss wanting a deadline, the school run. It's everything, those little stress responses that does the same response in the body. Now, if you suffer with hot flushes, what happens is your body's thermostat narrows because you've got estrogen receptors in these. So what happens is our normal everyday life where you can walk about and don't notice your body temperature, that narrows. So you're more likely to be pushed out of it. So walking from one room to another, the ambience changing can bring on a hot flush because your body wants to cool down. Also, stress reduces that thermoneutral zone. So if you think of someone who's stressed, hot, red-faced. So the way to widen that and manage the hot flush and the stress is your breathing. And it's free. And I know that, please don't be throwing things at me. Start with your breathing because it works to begin the rest of your journey to sort it all out.
Yeah.
So I do this and I put my hands on my belly and I breathe in and they just part, and I breathe out and they touch. And it's to ensure you're breathing properly. So some people, when you say take a deep breath, they do this and the opposite way you're breathing. So you breathe in your tummy. So it's like when you're a baby, so you're pushing your abdomen out and bringing it in. And you breathe in for 3 and out for 5. And what that is doing is altering the chemistry in your blood because of the carbon dioxide and oxygen levels. And because you're breathing out more carbon dioxide, your brain goes, oh, hang on a minute, we need to slow this down. Slows your heart rate down. So athletes do 7 and 11. I've not met anyone who can breathe in for 7 and out for 11. And now you know you're all going to be trying that. So in for 3, out for 5, in for 3, out for 5. Your heart rate lowers and your threshold rises. Okay. So you're able to stand down and stop the catastrophe. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. And you're able to look at it rationally, because you can't do that when you're acutely worried about a hot flush. So this takes practice. So do it when you're not in a stress reaction, and do it every day. And then you can start to rationally say, right, what is going on with my body, my career? So get on top of your breathing first.
Yeah, brilliant. And I use a program called Positive Intelligence in a lot of my work. And it's a lot of breathing techniques and different techniques to help you engage that rational part of your brain and be more present and manage those stressors. And the interesting thing is with that I think it's the only way I've made it through with some of the biggest challenges. And I didn't start it knowing that that's what I needed, but it has really helped me survive. And it's why I plug it into all of my programs to help women, because when you can manage those stressors more effectively and stay in a headspace where you're still going to have the stuff,
you still have them,
but you're just able to see, what is it I need to do here, what's going to be good for me, what's the right action to take, then everything beyond that is easier. So thank you. That's it. My clients will know that I get them to focus on the sensation of rubbing their fingertips together.
Right, yeah.
Focusing on the breathing and those things. Now, we are getting a few quite medically questions. I know as a a medical practitioner, you can't really offer individual advice.
I'll answer. Yeah, I'll talk about those. I can't because I don't know your history. I don't know your. So I have to talk generally. So antidepressants for similar symptoms. So the second line of defense is antidepressants in the NICE guidelines, and it's not to do with being depressed. It is they have a good effect on hot flushes in some women. However, women are often given antidepressants because they go with all these symptoms we're talking about. So it depends why you were given the antidepressants. Now, if you're on antidepressants because you have depression, anxiety, you can still take HRT because they're two different things. If you're able to, your family history, etc. If you're taking antidepressants because of hot flushes, well, you can still take HRT because they're two different things. The mini pill, that is HRT. It's hormone replacement therapy. So it's just people think of HRT as other things. So if you're on a mini pill perimenopausally and you've got no symptoms, fine, take it. If you're on the mini pill for contraception and you have symptoms, it's a risk-benefit conversation and going and talking to your GP or a specialist, because the second highest unplanned pregnancy rate is women between 40 and 45, teenage girls and women between 40 and 45, because the periods are all over the place. They start messing around with them and they get pregnant. So if you're on the pill and you need to manage symptoms, there's lots of options, and a menopause specialist might be better than just a general practitioner of your GP.
Although I think they are getting better as we're all
They are. I don't GP bash. Dr. Louise Newsom's Balance app, you can track your symptoms on that, and that's a good thing to take to your GP and say, look, this is me.
Funny enough, my GP her first thing was she prescribed her book to me. She said, right, we'll go get your blood test, you go and read this book, and then come back and we'll talk about it and see what you want.
That's a good GP. That give you the power. You know your body. There's another one, Dr. Anise Mukherjee.
Yes.
So I know Anise, endocrinologist. She had breast cancer. She talks about, so she couldn't take HRT, but didn't want her life to be over. And because it's her area of expertise, she just wrote a book on it. And I always refer people to it because it's sensible.
Yeah,
it's really sensible.
Yeah, and we can post these resources underneath. We're over time now. So I'd want to say two things. One is, like, if you're feeling your confidence has been hit, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling anxious, you're noticing those shifts, things are showing up at work that you just feel aren't you. It's worth exploring, doing some reading, speaking to your doctor about it. Like, get help. Don't sit with it and think, oh, it's all me, I'm weak, I'm terrible, and it's not.
No, not at all.
These things happen because that's your body, that's nature, and so don't suffer alone and suffer in silence. We're going to come back in December and we're going to really talk about what you should be expecting from your workplace, what workplaces can do, and we want to hear your questions then. But I really want to thank you, Emma, so much for a fantastic session. I feel like we could have you back weekly.
I know, there's so much to say. I just want to say, so all of my work and say, right, this happens, do this, do that, but we have 45 minutes.
Yeah. So we'll get another 45 minutes in December where we'll cover some more. And if you have questions, I'm sure we can point you in the right direction for resources. And I'm sure Emma would be willing to support your organization. She does have a business, Lemur Health, where she helps companies to develop their policies and support women effectively. So thank you so much for this today. It's been fantastic. And Bramley Brewer, get in touch with her. Brilliant. Thank you, Emma.
Okay. Take care. Have a lovely day, everyone.